as you presented me, Daniel, I'm coming from a rich journalistic background. By the way, from home as well. I was raised up in a family of book publishers. Actually, my family have a book publishing house, so print way before the internet, but also with a background in journalism. So this was always my dream, I must say. I was also a youth reporter, a young reporter in a youth magazine when I was young. But I was privileged enough to get the opportunity and the trust at early age to start my career in journalism. I started as an editor, a news editor, and climbed through the ladder.
Welcome to How I Made It in Marketing from Marketing Sherpa. We scour pitches from hundreds of creative leaders and uncover specific examples, not just trending ideas or buzzword-laden schmaltz, real-world examples to help you transform yourself as a marketer. Now, here's your host, the Senior Director of Content and Marketing at Marketing Sherpa, Daniel Burstein, to tell you about today's guest.
Think about the last time you read a piece of content that truly resonated with you. It could have been a news article, a blog post, or even a social media update. Now, consider what made that content impactful. Was it the way it was written, the story it told, or was it how it connected with your experiences? This brings me to a crucial aspect of marketing, the art of storytelling and the responsibility that comes with it. In my career, I've seen how powerful content can shape perceptions and influence decisions. It's not just about putting words on a page and filling your site with content, hopefully appease Google's relentless algorithm. No, it's about crafting narratives that engage, inform, inspire, and truly serve an audience. And who better to learn this from than someone who has practiced the art of storytelling in both journalism and marketing? My guest today is Nohar Zmora, the SVP of Brand and Strategic Marketing at Kaltura. Welcome to How I Made It Marketing, Nohar.
Hello, Daniel. Thank you for having me.
All right, well, let's just take a quick look at your background, jump around a little. So as I mentioned, you have spent more than a decade in journalism. You managed the news desk at Haaretz. You were deputy editor-in-chief, and you ended up being the content and government relations manager of the Haaretz conferences on peace. Then you've also been on the other side of things. You've been an account executive and business events producer at Super Push Publicis. And now for the past 4 years, Nohar has been at Kaltura, where she is EVP of Brand and Strategic Marketing. Kaltura is a public company that trades on NASDAQ and had $168.8 million in revenue in 2022. And it has 750 employees total. Nohar manages 25 people out of the 40-person marketing department. So give us a sense, Nohar, what is your day like as EVP of Brand and Strategic Marketing?
Sure, I'd love to. So yes, I've been SVP of Brand and Strategic Marketing at Kaltura for the past 2 years, almost. Before that, I've been managing a full department operation of, from the marketing perspective, a business unit at Kaltura. As the SVP Brand and Strategic Marketing, obviously I oversee everything that is brand at Kaltura, how our brand showcase itself and comes out at all of the marketing activities, initiatives, project that we have, but not only, obviously, in all of our comms. And as part of that, I lead our creative shop, so our internal, internal creative agency that caters to everything marketing we do, all of our campaigns, all of our events, all of our webinars, everything that we produce, of course, internally, but also to some extent internally for employer branding and internal events and other initiatives. The other side of things are all of our content machine, content factory, everything content marketing, the assets that we produce for our campaigns, again, webinars, hosted, sponsored events. Everything is fed by our amazing content marketing team that sit under my team. And the last piece of the puzzle, which is what we call the strategic marketing, is actually ownership of proper demand vehicles that are strategic in a way because they blend brand positioning and awareness and proper demand generation. And these are our mainly our flagship events, industry events that we have a few of them, both virtual and in-person series that we hold. Our signature webinar program, we have a very robust webinar program that we hold. And of course, all of the trade shows, the third-party trade shows and sponsored event we showcase in. So this is a bit about my areas of responsibility. But talking about my day-to-day, so I think the best way to describe it is a mix that I try to rigidly obtain of the future-looking responsibility that I see that I always have to. The responsibility that I have always to preserve and help the team look towards. So looking always 1 Q, 2 Qs, few Qs ahead. What are the next project that we need to kick off and start thinking of? Setting up the agenda. What are the learnings that we need to infuse into things that are coming up? This is my main area of trying always to put things forward and see what's coming next and how can we prep ourselves in advance in order to do things better, more creatively, and just more effectively. With the other, obviously, day-to-day work, which is on the one hand very daily in terms of reviewing, mentoring, escorting, guiding the team on everything related to the activities that I mentioned. So, all of the assets that we roll out and launch, all of the emails and communication that goes around all of these activations that we have. But even more than that, I think that my main responsibility on the here and now is my ability to stop and to zoom out at times, what project leaders and others have less the privilege of doing, and really asking hard questions and really diving into the data more and trying to raise some different assumptions or just things that we might want to optimize or do differently or try different things. So this is the mix and combination of my day-to-day working with my team and trying to infuse more questions, trials and errors, data into their work, with always trying to think 2-3 Qs ahead. So this is a bit about the day-to-day.
You are only one woman, right? I mean, that sounds like a very broad portfolio, not only in all the different marketing things you have to handle, but also all the different time frames. Like, that is very impressive. I'm tired just hearing you.
I have an amazing team leaders and teams. So yeah, we are a great organization. By the way, working super, super closely with my better half, Roi, which is the VP of Growth Marketing. So really, we work in a very integrated way with our partners on the other side on paid acquisition, website and marketing operations, and sales development representatives. So, yeah.
Great. Well, you got a lot going on that we can learn from. And as we mentioned, a very impressive career that we can learn from as well. So let's dig in there and see what we can learn from you. So as I mentioned before, I've never been in another industry. I've never been a podiatrist. I've never been an actuary, but I feel like we get to make things. That's something we as marketers get to do. And it's pretty unique, although journalists do too. And so let's jump into that first lesson from you. You say, don't just make content, take a journalistic perspective and produce impactful material. So how did you learn this?
So yeah, I think that obviously, as you presented me, Daniel, I'm coming from a rich journalistic background. You know, by the way, from home as well. I was raised up in a family of book publishers. Actually, my family have a book publishing house, so print way before the internet. But also with a background in journalism. So this was always my dream, I must say. I was also a youth reporter, a young reporter in a youth magazine when I was young. But I was privileged enough to get the opportunity and the trust at early age to start my career in journalism. I started as an editor, a news editor, and climbed through the ladder. Was leading the news department at Haaretz, and with my last role being deputy editor in chief there. And through my journalistic career, I think, now even as marketeer, thinking about this one thing or these few things that I carry on and that I think were almost burned into my DNA. Of course, as a marketer, but not only. I think, just in my day-to-day, pitching, talking, creating decks, managing people, is always thinking, through these lenses of a journalist, which are what's important, what's urgent, or the timeliness, the of the moment aspects of stories, and of course what will resonate with my audience and why. And with it comes this notion of responsibility, of course, to the authenticity, to the value, to the education of the materials we push out there, to the fact checking, to their reliability, but also the fact that they need to entertain, and the fact that they need to again to find ears that will enjoy them and will learn from them. And this is something that I found was a strength for me moving into marketing, because I do think that, as brands, obviously, and us marketeers in charge of converting. Yes, we need to sell. We use content as a way to attract leads, to convert them, to have them download things, to click on things, and to push them down the funnel. But the understanding of this responsibility makes our perception of content and our campaigns as a product of itself. And us as brands, as media companies with a responsibility, again, for the quality of the content we produce. But I also feel that the results are accordingly. So better content, which has a brand with a personality behind it, converts better. I think one of the interesting stories that I can remember from my time in Haaretz, mainly, that really made me embrace this and this notion of responsibility as marketeers and content creators, is when I was managing the news department at Haaretz. I won't say the year now because it will reflect on my, everyone will know how old I am, but no, I'm just joking. I don't remember. But
that's how old you are. You don't remember, but go on.
Exactly. But I will say that it was a weekend. I think I was in like half shift. So it was a Saturday. I was, for a reason, in the office itself. And on Friday night, there was a tragic occasion locally in Israel. A family which was known, a very tragic thing. All family members passed away. It was all over the internet. Everyone talked about it. A story that in regular days would fill, all of the front pages. They were involved politically. It was a very human story. But on few hours later, the tsunami in Japan happened. Obviously, you all know, massive amount of people killed, missing, a tragedy in, a grand scale. And I remember myself sitting there Saturday evening, working with the designers and my team on understanding how we want to have the first page of the newspaper for Sunday going out, like what's the priorities and what's the message that we send with putting one in the top fold rather than, and I think, and I think I'll talk a bit about my mentor back then soon, but I think one of the main learnings for me was to look at things also through the lenses of history. So if I would see this first page in 10 years from now, which it might be actually now, but go back to it, like, what are we marking to our audience, which is of, I wouldn't say even more importance, but that stands through times. And this was a big thing for me in understanding the responsibility that we have in curating content, in directing our audiences in many things we do on the level of a content piece and on the level of, whether it's a newspaper or magazine, our blog, or, our campaign on what's important. And also the mission that we have and the power that we have in educating and in helping times, even society with that. And yeah.
No, I like that. One of my biggest misses or whiffs in my career was hosting an event at the Times Center in the New York Times building. And I got to leave a little early. I didn't get to stay for the training after, but we'd met someone who was a major New York Times advertiser. And this was the first time New York Times did this. They invited that brand into the pitch meeting with the editor-in-chief where they decide what's on the homepage. And my co-host went, and I left early. I was like, to be there at the New York Times or like a newspaper like Haaretz and seeing like, okay, how do you decide? There are all these stories calling for your attention. How do you decide? But what I wanted to ask is, I wonder, when it comes to actually content creation, let's talk about that. Is there anything from your journalistic background that you maybe have an example now of how you use that journalistic background to some content piece you created as a marketer? Because I know for me, my journalistic background is pathetic compared to yours. I wrote for the local newspaper in high school. That's about it. But I did get to have that cool journalist notepad. But the one thing I learned that really stuck with me was the reverse pyramid or inverse pyramid. And this is a journalistic practice of people who don't know is you always start with the most important information and go from there. And as I learned it back when I was in the College of Journalism is because it started because of telegraphs back then. I think during the Civil War, where like it would cut off. They wouldn't know when the telegraph would cut off, so they would want to do the most important information. Yeah. And so as a marketer, the way I use that is when I write subject lines for emails, because subject lines for emails, you never really know how many character count that reader is going to have. It could be, there's a phone, there's a laptop, big desktop. There's so many different device sizes. You don't know where the character is going to cut out. So for me, for my email subject lines, I don't really care how long they are. I don't believe that it has to be a certain length, but I use that kind of inverse pyramid, reverse pyramid approach. I front load it. As long as the most important information is in the front, to me, it doesn't matter how long it is. So for you, when you're creating content now as a marketer, or maybe recently in your career, do you have any examples of how you use like, okay, here's something that worked for me as a journalist at Haaretz, but I'm still using it as a marketer?
So a few things I can throw there, just top of my head. One thing that I've really seen as a journalist, and am trying still at times with better success, at times with less, to bring into our marketing comms, the content that we create, is the notion of skim reading, right? That people many times just skim through. They do not read every word there, but we do want them to get the essence of the story. So you said something about subject lines. I usually really work with my content writers on building that structure of the story, the post, the article, in a way through titles and subtitles and section titles, right? And quote throughout, and just making sure that the story or the main aspects of it and the most important things we want them to take away are actually there. So even if I just skim through, read titles and subtitles, I get this understanding of the story. And usually we also try to hook them with the more picantic, interesting things there, because it's also a hook to dive in and read further. I think this is one very important thing. The other thing is the fact that, and again, in a world that is full of opportunistic writing, I'd say, right? SEO and everything we do around hips and hips of words, as you said, just to attract traffic. And I think for me, it's really important to have this hat of editorial writing. So for our blog, for instance, I'm really trying to always put in front of me the amazing examples of the New Yorker and the New York Times and the arts, in a way of thinking about features that are deep dive features, that are more colorful, that are more personal, that are more into deep dive interviews with relevant personas, which are deep dive into specific phenomena or trends, but trying to portray them in a more colorful, futuristic magazine style. So this is also something, by the way, not only for the proper text and content, but also for in terms of the design and leveraging more illustrations for it. So it's the entire editorial style that we try to bring into our content.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think as content, we don't just have our brand. If we're doing content marketing, we don't just have our brand for what we sell. We have our brand for our content too. And that is a brand. And you talk about the New York Times, Haaretz. Yes, these are publications, but these are brands. And so there's a certain amount of trust that comes with it. And so they can't just worry about this one-off story or that one-off story. It's kind of that holistic piece of how we serve a reader. And I liked it. I think this ties into your next lesson: balance long-term brand vision with short-term performance. Because if we're only focused on, what are some keywords we can just snatch up with a blog post, right? That's just that short-term versus what is that long-term brand we're serving? Where maybe this isn't a highly converting piece right here, and maybe it takes a lot more to produce, but we're building that content brand as a place to trust. So let's back it up though. Give us a story. Give us a sense of how did you learn this lesson? Balance long-term brand vision with short-term performance.
The hard way. The
hard way. That's about.
And I'm joking, but also some seriousness there. But really, I think owning brand leadership in a B2B company, and Kaltura specifically has been out there for a few years now. I'm with Kaltura for 4 years, and throughout these 4 years, Kaltura as a brand and as a company as a whole went through major changes. I must say, I don't know if it's a fully flattering story, but I'm always saying, also when I'm interviewing and recruiting people, I'm always being authentic and telling when I've been approached by Kaltura, and I'll talk about my mentor and the person who brought me to Kaltura. I had some hubris. My first impression and notion was, no, this is not for me. This is a pretty grayish brand, very B2B, very corporate. I was more in the startup scene, so I said no. I'm so happy that I was convinced that I'm wrong and that someone was smarter and knew better than me, because I got an opportunity not only to work with the best in the best, the smartest people I ever met in the industry, but also got a real opportunity. And some is also a coincidence with COVID and the times and circumstances, and a brand that was, so ready for change. But I came with a lot of enthusiasm, obviously, and a lot of ideas and a lot of things I wanted to bring. And I think the lesson that I'm trying to touch on is the understanding that there's a managing up responsibility here and an education internally that brand owners have to do in order to actually get things done. Not to say, get the trust, get the budget, get the headcount they need in order to really build things there. So in a way, I think when I'm talking about the balance between, your aspirations for building this brand that is inspiring, that has a personality, that talks in a certain way, that produces content and comms and campaigns that are of certain scale and creativeness to it. But on the other hand, understanding where you work, understanding what management priorities and goals are, and how you can bridge between them, and how you can strike the right balance that still able to digest and articulate. We all know how hard brand measurement is. So for us, specifically for me, we developed what we call brand on the go, in a way, not a way to look at it as more of a brand performance approach, which is indeed our relentless commitment to putting our brand front and center, to thinking brand, to thinking how we can do things in a unique way, in a creative way, in a way that shows our brand in how it looks with, but also from a tone of voice perspective, and in a creative way through the day-to-day project, through the main marketing activations and campaigns that are, again, super focused on still building the pipeline and bringing our demand. So this is our approach. It has proven itself very successful for us internally in onboarding, getting buy-in from management, and more and more resources that we are then able to balance better, to put more portions on more brand presence within these demand generation activities. I want to give a specific example or story. We early in 2020, late in 2020, early in 2021, still on the waves of COVID and the surge in demand for video solutions and that Kaltura enjoyed, we as a company went through an enormous change. It goes through a few aspects. One of them was a huge change in our buyer personas and the audience we target. So from a company that mainly sold our video solutions, our digital engagement, digital experience solutions to internal use cases. So that would be more corporate communication teams and HR teams and IT teams. We went all the way into MarTech, into marketing, selling webinar solutions, virtual and hybrid events, platform, community hubs. This is a huge change in perception and in the brand that needs to support it when you move to selling to marketers, which is probably, and our listeners, I think, know that, the most demanding and most thought of, and just a very demanding and audience that knows what they want. Another thing was that we went public as a company. So we had, to start being noisy, to talk to audiences that we haven't talked to before, right? The street. And the third thing there was that we also moved or added another layer of go-to-market. So from a very sales-driven organization, selling to enterprise, mainly the biggest companies out there, we also added low touch and no touch go-to-market models. So really selling to small, medium businesses and small, medium enterprises, selling digitally in many ways, things that we've never done before. Again, things that needed a solid brand, trusted brand behind them. So a lot of things, a lot of stars aligned, a lot of challenges too for us as a team. One of the things that we decided on doing back then was, we understood that we are not known as a brand in the marketing industry yet, as a MarTech player, specifically in the events industry. And we decided to hold big virtual events about virtual events. So it's like the Seinfeld joke, right? The coffee table book about a coffee table book. So I hope I didn't ruin it, but so we actually, just opened the whiteboard and started to think, what would it be? Obviously, we know we wanted to do a virtual event because we wanted to showcase also our platform and use it, and but that it should be an industry event, a thought leadership event. But again, we weren't known in this industry, so how can we bring, without huge budgets, great speakers and build ourselves a positioning and expertise there? And that brought Virtually Live by Kaltura to life. It was a very, very challenging work as a team, but I must say, I'm super proud of the result. We just wrapped the third edition of Virtually Live last November. So Virtually Live was a virtual event about virtual events. I think that the code that we cracked there in the first Virtually Live was the story that we've built around Knights in Marketing Armors. So that was the creative concept we took. We looked at marketers post-COVID, or just, going out of COVID, and we said, wow, these are inspiring heroes that went through horror and heroic stories, right? Business stopped. Marketers were the one who kept business on digitally, enabling brands to reach their audiences, even at times leading digital transformation for the entire organization, right? Because we were the ones that, worked digitally before. Specifically around the event industry, it was, stories about event marketers that prior to that, were in charge of logistics and, sourcing venues and stuff like that, and suddenly had to, develop new skill sets and become data engineers and understand UI and how to build digital journeys for their customers, for their attendees. So really took the notion of this heroes, marketers, knights in marketing armor, and we went with it. Yes, we went to some of our customers, the biggest logos, not working still back then with their marketing towers, more with their IT and HR towers, but also to many inspiring brands that weren't customers back then. And I'm happy to say that we were able to bring the biggest names in marketing, CMOs of the largest brands, all organically. So 99%, period 9 of our speakers there were non-paid. And I think this was an amazing hook. It was an abundance of amazing content, fireside chats with the biggest names in marketing, telling these stories of resilience and creativity and agility that their marketing teams and events specifically, but marketing as a whole, went through during COVID. And yes, we've built this event. It really helped with positioning us within the industry and starting this journey, which is still a journey of building our name in this industry. As I said, we've done since 3 times virtually live. It's constantly growing with thousands of attendees and great speakers and experiences. And I think, in a way, going back to the lesson, I think it shows, one, our way of doing brand and aiming high, and but with 10 fingers. So not always, huge budget, putting out there a lot of spray and pray, but really building something solid and then expanding. And the second thing there is also, when we're building something like virtually live, it's not only for the sake of brand. We're always looking of how we can actually bring result, but also show to the organization how the investment in that really brings home, the bucks. So we are even not only looking on registrants and, attendees and MQLs, but we're actually making ourselves and taking responsibility on, much further down the funnel. So really looking at pipeline that this has driven, and, influence on pipeline, close one deals, of course, sales accepted. So going much further than MQLs, and of course the brand mentions and all the measurements we do around brand.
Yeah. So making a big transition like that, I would think it's okay. We're talking about forward facing and how it affects customers, but also, boy, it takes a transformation of the team to be able to do that. So one of your lessons is learn how a team breathes, evolves, and adapts. So how did you learn that, and how did you kind of get the team to breathe, evolve, and adapt in a new way, essentially?
That's the $1 million question, but something that I'm very, very passionate about. And when I talk to colleagues, I also teach a marketing course, and I must say that for me, 80% of everything is indeed this magic of building the team. It's, of course, mainly around, finding the right talent, recruiting the right talent, growing the right talent internally. But much of it is also around, putting the right structure and understanding that it's also very dynamic. And similarly to how we as marketers always, looking at our plans, going back, optimizing, changing things, also being very open to where people strengths are, where people ambitions are, how can they grow and develop their careers within the marketing, by the way, also within the organization, outside of the marketing team. It's also our responsibility. Really understanding and building the structure and looking at it as a dynamic, breathing creature And the last piece there is also putting in place the right, I call it governance and togetherness routines. And it may sound gray and boring, right? Let's talk about the routines of managing the teams and the weeklies and the catch-ups and the project check-ins. But I really, really believe that this is part, and even more so when managing a global team, many of them remotely, right? We work in a hybrid way manner. So yeah, it's also part of that. I will say that this has always been something that I was passionate about, and I'm connecting it also to the personal pivot that I've done from being a journalist to marketing. I was privileged, to be just introduced to this world of tech by an amazing founder that knew me, that understood better than me that my background as a journalist will be amazing, and brought me into content and marketing in the startup that he founded, and there I've learned everything. But throughout the years, I took this notion and also helped and guided other colleagues and friends from journalism specifically to do this change and translate their skills in a way, right? It's skills of research and analysis, and on the other hand, storytelling that can match marketing for sure. By the way, not only marketing, so to the tech side of things. So I think in a way, my personal experience in that made me very fluid, I'd say, to how I look at the candidates and the right talent we need within the team. So yes, experience is important, but I always try to educate and guide my team and the managers in my team around that as well, to prioritize much more the persona. And for us, really finding smart people, smart in whatever. It doesn't need to be specifically in content, or specifically that smart is someone that is curious, is someone that is constantly learning, that is learning, that they learn fast, with a creative spark for sure, but more than that, just enthusiastic and passionate. And the last piece there, which I think is an afterthought at times for some roles in marketing, but for me, I think that's the main thing. Execution abilities, a go-getter, someone who can really take these creative ideas and great ideas and make them happen, which I think this is what makes the difference in marketing. I think putting this, and we as a team have developed this into a manifest, into the persona who is not our buyer persona, but our team persona. And we use it in our recruitment. We always try to come open with an open head to looking at candidates. By the way, we have even found, that at times for roles that usually we would look for more experienced people, we have a lot of interns who educated themselves throughout the internship in Kaltura and stayed with us, and really molded into great leadership roles within the team. So this is part one of how we really try to define the DNA, which is a Kaltura marketeer. The second thing there, and I think this is where much of it lies, is, past years have been, very dynamic, right? We had COVID, we had, economic hardships for markets in recent years. So changes are always happening, team growth, team change. And I think, first being very authentic and transparent and, in managing the team. And second of all, really putting out there, this dynamic, dynamic shape of the team that I touched on, really makes the difference. So we have, within the team, people who started again as, interns on our video team as editors, but then, have been exposed, and we always encourage initiatives and taking on projects and stuff you want to learn or be part of. So I have a great intern who came to us during COVID as a video editor. He got stuck in Israel, actually, and couldn't go back to Argentina. Then started, to really learn marketing, but not only, on the video side of things and our video productions in our creative team, but also how good he is as a content creator and even as a host of our podcast and our webinars. And, this has developed into a full-on career, which is totally in a different part of the team to some extent. And we have many examples like that, which I think is really all about keeping this open mind into how people develop, where are the strengths, what's good for the team and for what we're trying to achieve, and where it sits together, and it's a win-win with the talents that we bring. And that at the end, if you bring the right talents, they can do everything. They can be great at, now owning a full-on virtually live project end-to-end, its content strategy as well as its execution, and they can be great at, owning our channel marketing. So it's really a place to diverse and to build great careers.
So talking about people, that's a great thing we get to do as marketers, right? We get to work with people. In the first half of the episode, we talk about lessons we learned from the things we made. In the second half, we're going to talk about lessons we learned from the people you collaborated with. But first, I should mention that the How I Made It in Marketing podcast is underwritten by MechLabs Institute, the parent organization of Marketing Sherpa. MechLabs AI can write your headlines, value proposition, competitive analysis, and so much more using a methodology built from 10,000 conversion marketing experiments. It's free to use for now. No registration is even required. Just go to mechlabsai.com. That's MECLABSAI.com to get artificial intelligence working on your campaigns. All right, so let's take a look at, here's the first lesson from people you collaborate with. Storytelling has magic and beauty. I love that. You said you learned this from Ohad Zmora and Dov Alfon. Why don't you tell us who Ohad and Dov are and how you learned this from them?
Of course. Well, I think I alluded at least to Dov earlier, but so Ohad Zmora is my grandfather. He passed away, almost 20 years ago, but I was very privileged to grow up with him, together with him. And my grandfather, Ohad Zmora, was the founder of our family's book publishing house, which is one of the biggest in Israel. So I grew up in a house who was always full of writers and politicians and journalists. He was also, prior to me being born, the editor-in-chief of Davar, which was probably the first newspaper in Israel. So this was always part of the house that I grew up with, the inspiration that I took. But he was also very a great teacher. So I remember, every homework task that I had, I got heaps of books to read, the references from all over, and I was always exposed to newspapers from all around the world. So this was an amazing inspiration, but more than everything, really developed my love to storytelling of different formats, of different shapes and forms. By the way, I was also a cinematic freak, we watch all movies together. So really, I think instilled into my DNA, how you tell something, how you deliver your message is so of importance. So this is my grandfather. Doval Fon was the editor-in-chief of Haaretz when I started working at Haaretz, and through most of the years that I was privileged to work with him. He was the one who believed in me and brought me to Haaretz. Today, Dov is the editor-in-chief of Libération, one of the biggest newspapers in France. So really journalism titan, one of the biggest, an amazing teacher, not only for giving me the chance and believing in me, but really showing me this responsibility that I talked about. How us as communicators, I'd say, okay, this is have an amazing role, an awesome influence, but a lot of responsibility on our shoulders for fact checking, in an area of a lot of false going out there, for fact checking, for being authentic, for thinking about the value that we bring other than, getting eyeballs to our content in what we produce. So this is something that I really took from Dov, and also the story that I told before around this dilemma of, a local story that is, what the local audience will expect to see on the front page the morning after, or this, again, an event on a larger global scale. We want to educate the audience to know that this is of importance when you think of the geopolitics, of the environmental aspects of it, and so on. So, our responsibility.
Yeah, well, part of that responsibility, I think, as storytellers, sometimes we're just kind of going in this direction, right? We're outwardly like what we're saying, but we're not coming in the other direction, actually listening. So I like your next lesson. You mentioned actively listen while collaborating with the business and sales to create effective marketing strategies. And you learned this from Michal Stur, who's the founder and president of Kaltura. So how did you learn this?
So first, I'd say that again, being lucky of the people I met and helped me steer my career the right direction. So Michal Zur is the co-founder, president of Kaltura. Again, she was my all-time mentor and the person who brought me into Kaltura. And I think, for me at least, one of the most inspiring women entrepreneur in the tech industry. Also a social activist, doctor-in-law, and mother of three. So doing it all together, a real inspiration. And I think, what I learned from Michal, which is so fundamental to how I think of marketing and do marketing on a day-to-day, is that I cannot think of self as, only a marketeer or responsible only to the marketing aspects of the business, that my responsibility ends in a way in, the amount of leads and, MQLs, marketing qualified leads we bring, that's it. But in a way that, the entire go-to-market aspect of a company needs to work super well together, and that this is the marketing leader responsibility as well. So close collaboration, obviously, with sales, with business development, with product, and how product strategy is also part of my role, right? And collaborating on that with product, and how sales strategy, sales enablement, how we go to market, not only on, what we do on the marketing side, but how we do it and continue it on the sales side of things as, super holistic thing that need to work with one another. I also learned from Michal just her amazing business acumen and how it is important for me, coming from a content and very creative and very brand area, that wasn't my strongest suit, but it became that. Really understanding the numbers on the grand scale, the financial numbers, what the CFO is aiming for, and how we as marketing contribute to this full picture that is about the company goals for the year, what we need to achieve. So I think really developing this appetite in me to understand the business end to end, to establish this regular conversations, interactions with finance as well as with sales, of course, for alignment, for constant feedback, for developing these muscles of listening, active listening into the signals that they bring. At times you need to clean a lot of noise. I know at times you need to generalize a bit of the, very tactical problems they see. But there are a lot of intelligence there. And, all of this I learned from my amazing mentor, Michal.
So those are that you mentioned are some of the stakeholders, but a company has many stakeholders. And your next lesson you mentioned, have continuous and profound dialogues with stakeholders to achieve success. And you said you learned this from Lisa Bennett, the CMO at Kaltura. How did you learn this from Lisa?
Oh, so Lisa, our newly appointed CMO, and congrats, Lisa, if you hear me, but not only my partner, a longtime partner, friend, which I'm so lucky to work with. So really, I think that Lisa is an example of, another very inspiring journey in marketing, and a different one. Lisa has been with Kaltura from the very first day, have done quite everything in Kaltura, all roles out there, from office to PR to marketing. But I think what indeed stands out and always it doesn't stop to amaze me, and I'm constantly learning from her, as how she is so sensitive to people, prioritize people all the time, but in a way that really, really, really helps, solve challenges and, within the company, not only within the team, but with other stakeholders and teams, in a way that really helps me think of coming to a debate, or coming to an area which, with opposing opinions, really putting yourself into the other person's shoes, understanding where they come from, understanding the KPIs, and always believing that there's a win-win situation, which is probably better for all, because at the end, we're all working towards the same goals. So this is something that Lisa does in a very amazing way. Um, Always keeping a smile and a positive attitude. And this is something that I'm still learning how to do well.
Well, here's something I hope maybe you figure it out because I have not figured this out yet. So, you talk about having continuous and profound dialogue with stakeholders. How can you do this at a virtual event? Have you figured out how to do that? Because
Mm.
I want to be able to, because I don't like traveling, so I don't want to have to go to in-person events. When I think of this lesson, that is the best place I've been able to have continuous and profound dialogues with stakeholders, right? Because you're there, you can talk to customers, but you can also talk to other people within your organization who you don't normally get to see, investors, press, media, others from the industry are all there. And it's not just at those, like just goes sitting down and seeing a session, which we could do pretty well virtually. It's those things like, the happy hour or the networking or lunch, or, sometimes it's just from the bus from the hotel to the venue. I've had some of the, most profound discussions and learned so much. So have you been able to crack that nut? I know you like, this is something you're diving into, like having
Yeah.
these profound dialogues in a virtual event.
So it's always something, a work in progress that we continue improving and working on. But I can say that obviously this is also part of what we do and what we work with our customers on how they can do in a better way with their customers and their partners and their communities. So yeah, we are a true believers in the power of virtual events. Not only for large scale reach, which is not something we are able to do in person. The abundance of data that virtual settings gives us all that can then be used for optimizing content, understanding better the audience, better follow-ups with customers, segmentation, and much more. I think we still, and also for our internal work as a marketing team with other teams throughout the organization, we still believe in a mix, right? We just think that the secret is in the right strategy and the understanding of the differences between the formats and where we actually need the in-person, where we can do something that is indeed a hybrid, and where the virtual can serve us very well. And we find that in-person today serves us for more intimate, localized gatherings where most of our interaction, also from a business perspective, right, in our marketing with our customers, with our prospects, but also internally, are today on the virtual setting. You touched on the challenge, which is indeed the area of interaction and networking. And I think, this is always improving. There are still ways to go. I can say, and that we just wrapped last week a 3-day marketing offsite of our entire team, my entire team. It should have been a in-person offsite where we bring everyone together. Due to a few challenges of time schedules and so on, we've decided to do it fully virtually. It was challenging again, right? It's also the time differences, and you have shorter windows of time. And but I must say that we were astounded by how great this went. And I think much of it is around. You touched on it. You mentioned it. The right mixture of formats that really cater to your goals. So, for example, for us, it was much less around talking heads and presentations. It was much more around breakout rooms and hands-on workshops, working in smaller teams on specific things, then getting into the full forum and presenting things in a more timed way. A lot of activations of the team from even personal activities. We did like a cool secret Santa that everyone researched another one and presented it in a really funny way. So competitions and gamification. We had a leaderboard. We had, our very vibrant chat. We're using a lot of interactive formats like polls and quizzes. So I think, I hope that the team will, that the team feels the same. It was very cool. I must say that we also tried to have a bit of, to have some hacks to feel as if we are together. So, for example, just few interesting things, like we created a joint playlist that everyone, like when we had quiet moments or breaks, so everyone could listen to, and we felt like we're in the same place. Or we arranged for everyone food deliveries on specific times. So we had lunch and learns and dine and mingle together, having each their cocktail or their ice cream or their pizza together. So it was very, very nice.
Well, the food delivery is fun because you brought something physical into the virtual, even though you were all remote. That's a good idea. Okay, well, we've talked about so many different things. What about what it means to be a marketer in your stories, even learning from a totally different industry, journalism. If you, in 1 minute, if you could sum it up, if you just had to sum it all up, what are the key qualities of an effective marketer?
So I think I touched on it before, so I'll repeat because this is my, formula in a way. So yeah, I think smart is sounds like something on the one hand trivial, on the other hand, hard. Like, how do I measure smart? But I think it's this. Maybe it's this relentless curiosity, right? Of learning. Moving quick, understanding that this is such a dynamic profession that you can't sit on your feet, right? So you just have to have this appetite to constantly learn. By the way, I love people that have other hobbies and stuff that they are so passionate about, like music and other things, because I think this also represents for me this smartness, this curiosity, and this passion. So this is one area of things. And the other one is execution skills, this go-getter mindset, which I think is critical. I've seen throughout the years really smart and creative people that their ideas stayed within drawers, right? So if you don't have the abilities to some extent, or learn them, of project management, of being able to break down things, recruiting stakeholders, understanding how you bring something to life, you stay in this analysis paralysis stage. So yeah, I think this is what great marketers are made of. That's it.
Well, if I have to sum it up back to you, Nohar says, if you want to be a great marketer, don't sit on your tuchus. Is that?
Exactly.
Does that sound right? All right. Well, Nohar, thank you so much for your time today. We learned so much from your career. Thanks for being here.
I loved it. Enjoyed every minute of it. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for having me.
And thanks to everyone for listening.
Thank you for joining us for How I Made It in Marketing with Daniel Burstein. Now that you've gotten inspiration for transforming yourself as a marketer, get some ideas for your next marketing campaign from Marketing Sherpa's extensive library of free case studies at marketingsherpa.com. That's marketing, SHERPA.com.